welcome to the Bad Iron Podcast. I'm here with Fonty, Dallas, Texas. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. This is our fourth episode. Each one's been uniquely different, and this one will be no different than those different episodes. So we're going to talk today about some fun stuff that's going on in the world, some fun stuff in life, and we're going to tackle some of the things that we saw last weekend in the first 4 weekend of college football. And then we're also going to tackle some NFL games that are going to start up tomorrow night with the Chiefs and the Ravens in Kansas City. It's Wednesday, September 4th on our clock. Hopefully you get to hear this before a lot of the games start. But Fonty, how are you doing today? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. I'm doing all right, man. It's a short week, I guess, at the holiday. Man, I gotta say, boy, last weekend was super interesting. Some games that I think played out exactly like we thought they would play out. Maybe a couple games that didn't quite play out that way.
Yeah.
But the big news for me today, I don't know if you've seen this, is the match coming to TNT. I think it's TNT, although maybe it's one of these strange pay-per-view, networks like Amazon or Netflix. But Rory McIlroy is playing Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka. I think Rory is partnering with Scotty Scheffler. So it's kind of this whole PGA Live thing. I hope we find time to talk about that.
Oh my goodness!
Time to talk about it.
We definitely have to talk about it. I've only seen a quick snippet. I think it just got announced today, maybe, or went live, or they officially announced it. So yes, and I hope it's all of the tension that it could be. That would make for incredible TV. Do you know anything about the format? Did it say anything yet? Match play or?
I don't think it said anything.
Okay.
I assume it's hole by hole, best ball. You've got two of the best players in the world, and Bryson and Scotty. You got two of the mouthpieces in the world with Rory and Brooks. The whole Bryson Brooks angle, those two guys trying to sort of team up together and play off one another. I think it's going to be super exciting. So when I saw that on the news today, I thought, hey, got to mention it on the pod today for sure.
Absolutely. And so do you think, Liv is very relaxed. They basically wear whatever they want, it seems like. Do you think they'll all wear shorts, or will Rory and Scotty wear pants in honor of the PGA?
Well, hey, I think they were wearing shorts at practice rounds these days. So
they did change that.
Towards adapting. Yeah. I need to spend more time researching. I didn't come fully prepared. I don't know where the match is occurring. If it's in Vegas, is it going to be one of these things that bleeds into the night? They're going to put some lights up for the 15th, 16th, 17th hole. Maybe the 18th hole if it gets that far, right? There's so many variables in play. We'll certainly talk about it down the road as we get closer to it, but certainly exciting news.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, hearing more about it. I think they did the one with, I don't remember the group it was last time, the Mickelson group and all them. I think they did it around Thanksgiving time frame. Is that right? Do I remember that right a few years ago? Like, get the most viewership you can when people are home, for the most part.
Yeah, so I think this is playing out sometime in December, maybe closer to say the Christmas break.
Gotcha.
But let's not derail the pod. Let's focus on college football, NFL. But man, I just had to get that in.
Absolutely, man. And golf is part of our lives, obviously, like we've been talking about. And part of the reason why we named this Bad Iron, the other reason why we named this podcast Bad Iron, is because of what happened in a couple of games last weekend. Number one was Minnesota, who we both took at home, +2 against North Carolina. Most of you probably did not watch that game, but it was Thursday night, so it was nothing else was really on as far as sports are concerned. But I sadly watched the game. It ended in a push for us, so we pushed with the +2. Carolina won by 2, but Minnesota missed 3 field goals in the third and fourth quarter, including one at the buzzer from 47 yards, I believe, to win the game. And the most funny part about that, if you go on YouTube, you may be able to find it, and I wish I had it to play. When he kicked it, it missed. It clearly missed, and they waved their hands no good, but the fireworks went off anyway. So quite a faux pas in Minnesota. I guess they don't know what wide left means. And the fireworks went off anyway. It was hilarious. It couldn't have happened to a better conference or team. The love for the Big Ten goes deep and strong. But no other thoughts on Minnesota except that was bad iron for sure. Bad fortune for the people who bet on Minnesota, which includes us. We picked Minnesota there. And then the other one, Kentucky, my team. We were both big on Kentucky covering the spread against Southern Miss, and they were well on their way to doing that. 31-0 with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter, and the game called off because of lightning. So they were clearly going to win that spread. Another bad iron for us there. Obviously, I'm happy my Kentucky team played well, but still undetermined on whether or not the wagers are going to be honored depending on what app you're on. So mine still says pending. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm really worried. I know the over-unders got canceled, so we're already going to lose out on that one. Either way, it was bad iron. But you can't control Mother Nature. It is what it is. So, I really felt myself needing some oxygen, in that third quarter, hoping they were going to complete the game. So anyway, we'll go on. We'll move on. We'll have some. What you got?
Yeah, but we had some good calls. Right?
Oh, we did.
We got to focus on those as well, right? I love that Clemson conversation that we had last week. My goodness, Dabo, Cade. I mean, it was a rough outing for the Clemson Tiger fans, and I think we were all over that. So hopefully, folks that are listening were able to partake in some of that. And then, hey, man, I got to say it, right? Baylor. I talked about it. I said that they were going to come out. They were really going to throw some things at the Tarleton State. Tarleton State's quarterback was injured, so we made that call. 45-3. The defense dominated. The offense looked, let's not go over the top. It looked mediocre. So when we get to this week's game, Baylor, Utah, I may have a slightly different take on this one and how it'll play out.
Well, those were two of our biggest, I think we were the most vocal about and most confident on. And I thank you for that because you brought in some knowledge about Baylor, Tarleton, and the quarterback there. So that's what we love to share with everybody. But those were two we didn't have to sweat. By the second quarter, kind of felt confident about each one of those. Those are the nice ones that you love to have. Speaking of Dabo, I have a question for you. You may know this, you may not. People out there may not know this. Obviously, we know about like transfers, the portal, all that fun stuff that's happening these days and how much it's changing. There are 4 teams in college football, FBS, that did not take one single transfer. Can you name the 4 teams?
I could not. I have not invested time in that detail. I mean, I've certainly heard some of the things that have been commented about Clemson after the embarrassing defeat at the hands of Georgia. So Dabo's going to have to rethink his portal strategy. He's clearly got some weak points across the offense, across the defense. And
well, that's the first
he's going to have
one.
to lean in on that portal.
You got the first one.
Yeah, but you're going to have to
none.
Man, bring it.
The other 3, Air Force, Navy, and Army. That's the 4 teams that did not take in all of FBS. Dabo's living with the military schools when it comes to the transfer portal, and it showed.
Yeah, certainly makes a lot of sense, right? The military schools, that's not their cup of tea.
Yeah.
They have a very specific process that they follow, but Dabo's going to have to adapt. He really is, or he's not going to be there very long. Let's be honest. I've got some family connections that are Clemson Tiger alums and fans.
Yeah,
and those folks are. Since Dabo brought those championships back, obviously they had won a championship, I think, in maybe '81. Since he's brought them back to that level, that fan base has gotten rabid, and they're not going to stand for a bunch of 8-4 type seasons. So he's going to have to adapt.
Yeah. I know he's got a big buyout. I want to say it's like in the $16-18 million range. I don't know. I'm speculating or guessing there, but it's a big buyout, I'm sure. But it may just be too much. It's, Florida State also, that ACC's, I'd like for my Cats to be in that ACC right now because they look like nobody can play football in the ACC. Maybe Miami looked really good, which we also had, by the way, covering against Florida. So, that one was another one that we didn't have to sweat. So anyway, let's go on to some games that are coming up this weekend. And so you already mentioned Baylor. So let's just start there. Baylor, I thought, I didn't get to watch most of the game. You probably watched it being a Baylor Bear alum. I just saw the stats were pretty overwhelming. Tarleton State didn't really move the ball, but they got Utah this week. And is it at Utah? Is it in
It
Utah?
is.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on this? I know you got some thoughts coming off that first game.
Oh boy. So early prediction or early take for me is Utah, right? So if you look at Baylor on the defensive side of the ball, they played spectacularly. Some real talent, did well. I'm sure that folks would agree they weren't challenged by Tarleton State, the second and third string quarterback. So Utah, 6 year starting senior quarterback, he's obviously going to press that secondary. He's going to not have seen something before that Dave Aranda may try to throw at him from a defensive
Yeah.
perspective. So I suspect that the defense will get challenged this week. And then offensively, again, not the best performance. Really tough running the football against Tarleton State. So to think we can roll into Utah and be able to
Yeah.
run that football effectively. Now, look, I'll say this, right? It's week 2. And most folks would agree that offenses and defenses are only showing 30, 40, 50% of their capability sort of in week 1, unless you're Georgia Clemson, you're playing a
Yeah.
stalwart. When you're not playing a stalwart, you're not going to show everything that you're capable of doing that you're doing in practice, right? So I do think that Baylor's going to have some things bottled up. They may be able to get to the edge a little bit better. They may be able to get the ball down the field a little bit better. But look, Utah is a totally different animal than Tarleton State. I think Baylor's going to struggle. It's a road game, so I'm taking Utah on this one, Andy.
What's the line that you have for this game? Do you have one? I have 14
So I
and a
think
half.
I think the early line I saw was 15.
Yeah. So it hasn't
So
moved too
obviously we
much.
talked about it last week. Yeah, so we talked about it last week. I, can't bet here in Texas. So I've got to use alternate services. So what I'm seeing in my platforms are 15. I don't think it matters whether it's 14 and a half or 15, to be quite frank. I think Utah is going to win this game, 30-10. Does Baylor get more than 17?
Yeah.
I would be shocked.
See, I'm with you a little bit, and this goes to one of my theory didn't do great last weekend, but I have another theory, and that's just overreaction. I think it's out there a lot, and a lot of people may overreact to that Baylor score. But you just provided some good insight on what really was going on the field. Like you said, they got down to the third QB, and they got to go out to Utah. Everybody has trouble playing out there, and they always have a stout run defense. They definitely did last year. And so if Baylor was struggling to run on Tarleton, you might be right. It might be tough sledding. So that 14 and a half is to me, or 15 is Vegas trying to say, yeah, bet on Baylor. That's 2 touchdowns. But I'm with you. I think that's Vegas trying to tease more people into taking Baylor right now. So I'm with you on Utah. It's not a strong play for me, but I definitely agree with you with all your analysis on that. So the big game of the weekend, though, obviously Texas at Michigan. Michigan did not look great last week. Texas looked amazing, of course. Again, my gut tells me that's an overreaction to Michigan not playing very well at home in their first game. Fresno State's not bad. If you look at their past several years, they're not terrible. I don't love West Coast teams, but I am probably going to skip this one and watch it out of interest. But my gut would tell me to take Michigan getting 7.5 in the big house. I can't imagine anybody being favorable with them coming off a national championship. Do you have any thoughts on that one? I'm going to lean Michigan.
I suspect you're probably going to want to mock me a little bit because I go with the favorites, so to speak, right? But I'm going to explain why. I'm going to give you one of the things to watch for, and that's for Texas to stop the run, right? So Texas lost a lot of talent on that defensive line last year. I think they got a little bit of a cream puff in the first week, didn't really challenge them between the tackles. I suspect Michigan is going to challenge Texas between the tackles. And I think
Yeah.
Texas has got a lot of speed. They've got a lot of strength on the outside in the secondary at the safety level. But I think that defensive line is really going to be challenged by Michigan. So that's the thing to watch for. But I'm going to go back to one of my original predictions where I thought Texas, I was taking the over. I said they're a bit of a team of destiny. Sark has got those guys playing the right way. And Quinn Ewers just kind of finally put up his ego and is focused on the team. So I actually think Quinn's going to walk into that big house and lead Texas to victory. So I'm taking Texas. I feel strongly about this one. I told you what to watch out for: Michigan's ability to run the ball, but ultimately, I think Quinn Ewers leads that team to at least a double-digit victory.
Oh, wow. Big prediction there. I mean, I do think there's a chance not only that Texas is that good, but that Michigan, without Harbaugh and without cheating, is not. I do think that's and if that is the case, it is a double-digit win. I don't care where it's played. And I believe it's an afternoon game, which maybe can temper the crowd a little bit in away games at Michigan. So, like I said, I'm treading lightly on this one. Something to think about. I like the overreaction, but I do think there's a possibility Michigan just does a Dabo and kind of goes into the tank a little bit for them this year after all they've been through and the controversy. So I could definitely see it going that way. And also, if Texas wins this game, we looked at their schedule when we did predictions. I mean, they got a chance to like waltz into the playoff. I think the other really tough game they have is Georgia, and that's in Austin. And so, this is their really big, tough road game. I think they have a few other ones that are tough in the SEC, but most of them are home. So anyway, if they pull this one out, they got a real chance of becoming number one at some point if Georgia slips up. And they'll get Georgia later at home. So good pick there, good analysis. I like that a lot. Let's move on to another SEC game. We got Oklahoma State hosting Arkansas, who put up a 70 burger last week. What are your thoughts? You know the Big 12 pretty well. Oklahoma State at home. What do you think on the Oklahoma State at home and against Arkansas? They are 7.5-point favorites at home.
Yeah, which surprises me. I mean, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if it's a play on Arkansas, maybe not being as strong as, and I think we talked a bit about Arkansas in the first week. I'm not a fan of Oklahoma State. I'm not a fan of this team. I'm not a fan of this quarterback. Incredibly inconsistent. He had a good first game, put up some decent numbers. I think overall, maybe Arkansas is going to get to him a little bit. And I put some pressure on Gordon to really carry him, the running back. And I'm actually going to pick Arkansas in this game. It's one that I would agree with you previously. It's not a strong play for me, but once in a while, I guess I got to take the underdog. And in this one, I'm gonna roll with the underdog. I'm gonna roll with them putting some pressure on that QB.
I can't believe the underdog you're rolling with is Big 12 against the SEC. Shocked. This would have been the last one I would have picked that you would go that way. A lot of it's an inside joke for a lot of you guys. Jeff is Big 12 guy. I'm a SEC guy. We always have good arguments about that, which I'm sure we'll have more of. This is one of those games. The SEC didn't do great in the marquee games, but it wasn't the best teams. Florida, they're not one of the better teams. LSU did stink it up, but USC looks like they're for real again. So LSU still a little bit of overreaction maybe in the SEC. I'm with you on Arkansas. I like that number. I like the 7.5. I think Arkansas can put numbers up. My one question for you would be just real quickly: Oklahoma State's home field. What's it like? Is there a big advantage there? They play well at home, pretty much.
Not particularly. It could get loud, but that stadium isn't really designed in the same way that some of the SEC stadiums are designed. So my experience, having been to a couple games there, I don't think it's a true home field advantage like you see in a few other programs. Like Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas home field is pretty significant, right? Oklahoma State doesn't carry the same weight as you would see if they were playing at Arkansas. So
that was kind of my hunch and leads me even more towards the Arkansas pick. So, okay, cool. Back to Dabo as we come back around. Obviously got smoked at home against Georgia. Not just smoked, but at home after sprinting down the ramp, Dabo and his thing. Oh. Sorry about that. I think Dabo just ran behind me or something. Anyway, so Dabo, I cannot wait till he falls on his butt one of these times running down that thing. But anyway, they're playing home to App State. I know App State still has a lot of talent. They lost their coach, but they're a 16.5 point favorite at home. I really only opinion I have on this one is that Clemson is probably a lot better than they showed in the first week. They have still have a great defensive line, and I think Georgia is way up there with Texas about, as one of the top two teams clearly in the nation. I'm going to though lean App State in this one. I think there could be a little bit of a, let down slash, off of playing Georgia, even though they got smoked. So I'm taking App State getting 16.5 at Clemson. How about you? What do you like on this one? I know you love Dabo.
Yeah, it feels like a conflict here, right? Because I just got done talking about last week's pick and all the issues with Dabo and the transfer portal. But I think this is that overreaction you referred to, right? Given 16 and a half, that does seem like a lot. I would typically lean with you on App State. But here's what I think. I think Clemson bounces back. I think Dabo is going to have chewed these guys out. I think a few of the team leaders will probably step up. I suspect they're going to run the ball early and often, and then Cape's going to hit some things over the top. Boy, this one's tight. I really think the 16.5 is a solid number for Vegas. I can't go push because of the half point, so I'm gonna go with App State. I think that they keep it tight enough that Clemson maybe kicks a field goal at the end to push it to say 11 or 14 or 15 point win. But I think App State's going to cover.
That's my feeling. I think Clemson wins like rather comfortably, like you said, 10, 14 points. I think App State, though, this is another example when you have a solid team like App State where you can get that backdoor cover. Maybe Clemson's up 28 to 10 late in the game. They're covering, but App State goes down and Clemson plays prevent, and we get a backdoor cover situation there. So be watching that one closely. I think a lot of people be watching that closely. Dabo's clearly in the news. Next game, we're going to stay in the, another top 25 versus top 25 matchup. We don't have a ton of them this weekend. So, but you've got Tennessee going to NC State, and I don't know a whole lot about NC State, but what I do know is that the ACC has stunk it up so far, unless you think Georgia Tech and Boston College are the next Georgia and Texas. So far they've stunk it up. I think that's just a reflection on the league and the direction it's going. I think there was someday I told you many years ago that the conferences were going to end up being just two of them. The ACC is going to go away. I still believe that. I think the ACC is going to go away next few years. Regardless, not going to stay on that hot take right now. I love Tennessee is -8 on the road at NC State. I love Tennessee here. They will put up points. They will not stop pressing on the gas if they're up 7 or up 8 late. So I love Tennessee in this game.
Yeah, I think it's a great call, right? So I'm going to give you a couple stats. So Tennessee 69-3 over Chattanooga, right? 69-3. Let's remember that. NC State goes and plays Western Carolina, and they only win that game 38-21. I mean, I rest my case. I mean, Tennessee is going to put points on the board. NC State is not going to be able to keep up. So I actually would place this probably my second most positive bet, right?
Yeah, I like it. I'm with you. I feel confident. If there's an over-under on Tennessee points, I like it. I think they're going to get in the 40s in this game, if not more. So I'm with you on that one. So we'll watch that one. I think that's on Saturday night, so we'll be watching that one. Although the afternoon game of the day is absolutely, everybody can agree with me, is South Carolina at Kentucky, the biggest game of the season on each of these teams' schedule. And I don't say that lightly. I'm joking about the biggest game of the day. But this is the biggest game on each one of their schedules. I think you pointed that out when we went through the Kentucky schedule and picked their over-under, that this was a swing game for them. I believe that. Kentucky, as we already talked about, 31-0 against a kind of hapless Southern Miss team, which we obviously predicted last week. South Carolina struggled against Old Dominion. If I'm an independent bettor at this point, which I'm not when it comes to Kentucky, I'm thinking overreaction to South Carolina. The line is up to 10.5 Kentucky at home. Kentucky is in Lexington. South Carolina has won the last 2 games against them, which has derailed their season. I would lean South Carolina in this game. However, my play is going to be on Kentucky, and my play was also going to be on the under because South Carolina has a really good, solid defensive line. Kentucky wants to run the ball for the most part. Stoops likes to grind the clock out. I don't know if some of you people noticed there were a lot more unders so far in college football. That clock stopping on first downs, not stopping on first downs, it might matter a little bit. So we're starting to see that. So I like the under there as well. Do you have any thoughts on the Cocks and the Cats?
Well, I got to ask real quick, how is Kentucky not ranked? This one baffles me. I mean, goodness gracious, we're saying that Kentucky is not one of the top 25 teams in the country. Come on, folks. I mean,
Yeah,
did anyone watch that Clemson game? I mean, that actually ranks these teams. So I'm super surprised Kentucky didn't kind of slide in there
yeah.
23, 24, 25 and kind of get a position that they deserve and that they probably have earned. Maybe it was a result of the game being shortened and so forth. I don't know what goes into those voters' minds. Question to you though, the over unders at 42 and a half. You
Yep.
still like that under?
I don't love the
Boy,
number.
what's your score? What's
I
your
don't.
score prediction?
No, I don't love that number. But Kentucky historically under Stoops, especially when he's got a really good defense. He's a coordinator's coach from Florida State, a really good one. When Florida State was with Bowden, he was their defensive back. So he will always focus on defense. And we talked about this. We have an unbelievable defense. What worries me is not us stopping South Carolina. What worries me is Kentucky possibly getting a couple of big turnovers and getting short fields or getting pick sixes, which hurt your over under. If those weird things don't happen, I think Kentucky holds South Carolina to 10 or less. I don't think Kentucky gets in the 30s. I feel like this is a 24 to 10 game. That was, barely covering the spread, also staying pretty far under the 42. 42 is a low number. I just think both of these teams want to grind it out. Both have good defensive lines. That clock will roll when they try to run the ball. So that's why. It is low. It is low.
Got it. Hey, I
It's
mean,
low
good
for a reason.
analysis,
It's
right?
low for a reason.
Yep, you know the program. I'm going to stay away from this one. I don't have a feeling one way or the other, but I had to get that question.
It's really tough to take a favorite of double digits with such a low under because you worry about the team that's favored not being able to get enough points to cover that spread. So it is a tough one, but it happens more than we think. And I think a lot of people react the other way and say, oh, this is an 11-point spread. There's going to be points scored in this game probably to cover that 11. And so I think it's a little bit of a dichotomy. So I'm going to stick with it. I don't like betting on unders. I don't like rooting for unders. I like rooting for points. I'd love Kentucky to win 52-0. I just know historically what Stoops is like in games like this. So we shall see. We shall see. Let's do one more real quick college game, and then we'll segue over into the NFL real quick and go over a few of those games as we start the NFL season this weekend. But I have a little bit of thoughts on Cal at Auburn. I don't know if you've looked at that game at all. But to me, I'm looking at this game as simply an overmatched in talent Cal team going on the road far east to play an underrated Auburn team that is kind of fired up. I believe they absolutely manhandled. I don't even remember their opponent week one. It wasn't a strong opponent. But it's just a 13-point spread at Auburn. This is not a heavy lean for me, but just going on the SEC Pac-12 angle, which did fail us in LSU, South Carolina, I'm going to take Auburn as a favorite, and I don't love taking favorites. But do you have any thoughts on this one, Pac-12, or is it even the Pac-12? Is it the Pac whatever, or is Cal in the Big Ten? I don't even know. They're still
Yeah,
Pac-12 to me.
goodness,
That's a lot.
well, I think actually I think Cal is in the ACC now, believe it
Oh,
or not.
that's right. See, that is so. I can't keep up
Yeah,
anymore. I just can't keep up anymore.
it's crazy. I mean, you got Stanford, you got Cal,
That's right.
we got SMU. You got a few of these interesting programs transitioning into the ACC. So, hey, look, I would go back to the Tennessee conversation, right? I think this Auburn team proved in week one that they can be pretty dominant when they put their mind to it. And this game being at home, I would probably feel really differently if Auburn was having to go to Cal.
Yeah.
But this game being at home, that stadium is going to be rocking. We talked about stadium effect with Oklahoma State. We know that that field is going to be rocking Jordan Hare Stadium. So look, I'm taking Auburn. I think this is probably a pretty good lock. I would be shocked to see Cal come in there and do something that would surprise Auburn in any way on the offensive and defensive side of the ball.
Agree. And you're right. Cal, they played Cal, I think it was Cal Davis in the first week, which I don't even know if that counts as a game. But at least Auburn, looking at their schedule, they're not looking ahead to SEC next week or anything. They got New Mexico coming back into Auburn. So I think they're going to try to take advantage of these first three games. I'm with you on that one. So we both like Auburn there. And we are going to next flip over to the NFL. But before that, we are going to take a short break.
Good.
All right, welcome back. Bad Iron Podcast on September 4th. Getting ready for the NFL season. I'm here with Fonty in Dallas, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. You can call me Andy or Andy Mike or Duke or Idiot or something along those lines. We're going to talk about some NFL games. We went over the college slate just a little while ago. I think we have a good chance of going undefeated this weekend, so we'll see how we do. But when Dabo ran me over earlier in this podcast, if you saw that, I was having trouble kind of breathing when I got back up, and I just was thinking about, I was reading an article anyway earlier today, and I have this segment that I don't know what to call it, but I'm just going to call it Truth or Fiction. So, I don't know if you've ever been to the high altitudes. I know you've traveled a lot, Fonty, but like when you stay in a high altitude, a lot of times the hotels will pump oxygen into your room. They'll ask you, hey, you want some oxygen pumped into your room? I guess it helps with breathing and allergies or whatever the case may be. So you can say yes or no. But what it does for a lot of people is it keeps people awake because it kind of activates your brain. It's said that they do that in Vegas casinos. They pump oxygen into the casinos. Have you heard this before?
I think I've heard something along these lines.
I thought that was very interesting. So I went into the rabbit hole. Do you think it's truth or tale that Las Vegas casinos pump oxygen into their casinos to keep people feeling more awake? I do know it's true. They don't put clocks in casinos, and they blur, They don't put a lot of windows, a lot of doors. It's hard to find your way out of there sometimes. What do you think about the oxygen theory?
I think it's a tale. I do, man. I just can't conceptualize how that would happen, right? I mean, you can have these giant oxygen tanks in the back or underground. Like you're going to have someone kind of rolling in with a big truck, dropping this thing. I mean, goodness gracious. Do you have a hose where you're attaching it to the apparatus, trying to push this? I mean, I don't know. It sounds like a lot to me.
You're right. It's a tale. It is it's a myth. And it actually is, I found out it's illegal. So whether they try to get it and do it anyway or not is something, but it just got me also to thinking half the people I see in there are on oxygen tanks anyway, riding around it to their, and they're smoking. So I don't know how that works, but hell, that may be me someday. I don't smoke, but who knows? I'll have something that'll probably cause me to have to have oxygen. But I got way off track there. Sorry. When I fell, I kind of thought about the oxygen thing. So, I'm okay. Don't worry about asking. I'm okay. Don't worry about that. So we're going to tackle some NFL games.
I know you better.
I'll tackle some NFL games. But first, at the beginning of every year, obviously we know quarterbacks are the big thing in the draft. Everybody gets their quarterback. That's what you build your team around. Everybody knows that. Patrick Mahomes has now taken that to the next level, but it's a combination of him and Andy Reid. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers pretty recently. I mean, all these amazing quarterbacks that basically you have to have a quarterback, preferably on his rookie contract, to make a run at the Super Bowl. And so there's this historical trend in the NFL that, quarterbacks do not do well in their first year. And even Peyton Manning threw, I want to say 27, 28 interceptions in his first year. And that is a real number. And as a matter of fact, actual number one quarterback picks are 0-16 in their first game. Caleb Williams, number one pick, Chicago Bears. Coming up, let's start with that game. They are playing my local Tennessee Titans at home in Chicago, and they are a 4.5-point favorite, but they have a rookie quarterback. So not only would they have to cover the 4.5 points, but they'd have to beat 16, 17 games and 15, 20 years of history as a rookie quarterback winning their game as the first pick. You have any thoughts on the Titans getting 4.5 at Chicago?
Well, it's kind of hard to go against that trend, right? How are you going to buck the, what did you say, 26 or something, straight losses from a rookie quarterback? Look, I think logic kind of plays into this to some degree from my perspective. Rookie quarterback, he's practicing, he's played a few preseason games. He has not seen some of the things that the D coordinators are going to throw at him.
Yeah.
And so, the defensive coordinator has had weeks and weeks to prep for this game, right? To get Tennessee off to a fast start, get that first win in the column. So he's got some tricks up his sleeve in terms of where he's going to be bringing blitzes, how he's going to roll coverage, what's he going to do to disguise things, and that's going to put that quarterback in a tough spot. So I'm not going to buck that trend. I definitely think Tennessee is going to roll into to Soldier Field and do some damage.
I agree. That's probably one of my top plays of the weekend are the Titans. I think they're a little under the radar because Will Levis didn't get to play last year, so the offense is in question for sure. They did add a little bit of talent at the wide receiver position, so that should help him a little bit. Their offensive line is the key. Their offensive line stunk last year. I believe per play, Will Levis got hit more than anybody in the NFL. So if he can stay upright, they can run the ball a little bit. They did lose Derrick Henry, but I don't think he was himself last year anyway. Long story short, I think they at least cover that 4.5. If you know anything about the NFL, almost every spread ends up being around 3, and almost every game comes down to the last possession. I don't care how good one team is over the other. It's unreal. And I don't think this one's going to be any different. I do think Chicago will have a good year, and they may win this game. They may win it 24-20, but I think the Titans hang around to the end. And it would buck the trend, though, if they won. It would buck the trend. And the trend is actually that the number one pick as a quarterback has lost all 16 games since, I believe it's 2000 or 1998. It's been a long time. So 16 in a row, if you're a number one pick quarterback, they haven't won. Won a game outright, not just against the spread. So first round picks, I think, have won some. But last year, first round picks, we had several, all in the top 5. I believe it was Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, and who's the third? Help me out.
Oh goodness, last year.
Oh, and at Houston, had a great year. Shoot, I'll get to it.
Alabama quarterback.
Yeah,
Alabama quarterback.
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Anyway, predicted to have an MVP type year this year. They all three not only lost in their first game last year, but they also did not cover the spread. And they were top. And I believe, no, this is not something I believe. I know that Richardson got hurt in that game and ended up giving the ball over to Minshew. So he didn't even get through his first game. And I wish I would have had this podcast last year because I would have been all over that one because I think Richardson's overrated, but we will not tackle that one at this point in time. It's actually the Houston quarterback is CJ Stroud. The one we're not thinking of is the one Bryce
Young.
Young, thank you. There it is, Bryce Young. So yeah, so he did not have a good year. I think they're going to be a little better this year, but all three anyway lost in their opening game. So we got 2 other ones that are starting. Quiz for you. Do you know the 2 other rookie quarterbacks that are starting in week 1?
Ooh.
One of them won the Heisman.
Boy, Yeah, so that would be the LSU quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Is he with the Commanders now?
Yep. Jaden Daniels,
Jaden
Commanders.
Daniels?
Yep.
Yep, yep. But man, the other one I don't know.
It's a surprise, honestly. He was the quarterback at Oregon and had a great year. But
Oh, Bo Nix.
Bo Nix for Denver. I guess Denver has no other
Yep.
options. So, um, but we don't have to analyze these games, but I'm going to play against all three of them. The Commanders are on the road at Tampa. Baker Mayfield, one of your favorite players. But I think Jaden Daniels has a future. I don't think it's this year. So I'm taking the Bucks. It's a 3.5 point spread. I don't like that number, but I think Tampa wins by at least a touchdown. Um, do you have any thoughts on that one or on these rookie quarterbacks and how they're going to perform? Okay,
I don't. Yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time. I'm only thinking about the Cowboys
we'll
and
get to
the
that one.
amazing Dak Prescott.
We'll get to
Absolutely.
that one. The other one I think is Bo Nix. It's at Seattle. That's a tough place to make your first NFL start. I think Bo Nix is going to be pretty good. I don't think he's Marcus Mariota of several years ago, so I think he's going to do better than that. But the big one I'm going to go against is Chicago. I'm going to go with the Titans plus 4.5. So you mentioned them, the Cowboys, the Star on the road in Cleveland in the dog pound. What do you think? Can they survive the bones being thrown at Dak Prescott in the end zone? It's 2.5 points. The Browns are favored.
Yeah, it seems like a strange line to me. You've got more experience with this than I do, but 2.5 points, well, we might as well just make it a pick 'em. I mean, I guess some of these games can finish 28-27, but oh my goodness, 2.5
Not
points.
usually. Not usually.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, look, my hot take is that Dak is going to probably struggle a bit. CeeDee Lamb is not in game shape. We've just signed him. He's just jumping on the field. He's probably got, what would you say, 20 to 25 plays at full strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
After that, he's going to need time on the sideline. We're not going to be focusing on him. He's not going to be able to get down the field and make cuts in the same way that he does when he's actually in game shape around week 5 or week 6. So I think Dak not having that security blanket with CD is going to put a lot of pressure on the run game. Well, what's the weakest position of the Dallas Cowboys? Running back.
Yeah.
So, we could talk about the offensive line. I could spend an entire podcast on the Dallas Cowboys. But ultimately, in this game, I think the Cowboys come out and really struggle to find some consistency to get the ball down the field. And actually, here's the point I'll make: put the ball in the end zone. The Cowboys might kick 5 or 6 field goals, quite frankly. But to get that ball into the end zone, no running game, lack of CD Lamb, cover up the tight end, and I think Cleveland easily wins this game. I think they win this game by anywhere from 6 to call it 11 points because the Dallas Cowboys struggle to put the ball in the end zone.
Yeah, that's really good analysis. And the best thing going for Dallas is it's first game of the year, and secondly, it's not cold in Cleveland yet. But those games can get really, really frigid. And Dallas used to playing in their dome, used to playing at home. I do think that matters sometimes later in the year. And Cleveland's a tough place to play. Let's be honest, they've been really good. They are talented. They've been very good in the draft, building from the draft, which is I love that philosophy. I don't love Deshaun Watson. I don't think he's at another ode to Dabo there. I just don't think but if he doesn't make mistakes, I'm with you 100%. The over-under is only 40 in this game. Talk about low over-unders. So the Vegas is expecting it to be a, field goal game, to your point. So in that case, I still like Cleveland as well at home. If you say Cleveland is a 3-point, home field advantage, and you're saying this is actually Dallas's favorite. So I'm with you. I like Cleveland. I like the 2.5. I hope it doesn't go to 3. I don't like the 3, but I like 2.5. Let's move on to my team. Been repping them the last 2 podcasts. I'll be in Kansas City tomorrow, but I won't. I don't know if I'm going to the game or not. Regardless, Ravens at the Chiefs, probably the best game in the first weekend. I think Dallas and Cleveland will be right up there. Packers and Eagles, but I mean, an amazing first game to kick off the season. Last year, Detroit went into Kansas City, whooped their butt. Didn't really whoop their butt, but beat them in Kansas City after hoisting the Super Bowl flag. So it's the same situation as last year. I think if Detroit doesn't win that game last year, I don't even know if they make the playoffs, honestly. But that gave them so much momentum. They were fired up. I don't think it happens this year. Um, the Chiefs had to go into Baltimore to get to the Super Bowl last year, which was amazing. They had to go to Buffalo and to Baltimore, and they took care of business. I think they are more talented this year. They did lose Snead on the defensive side of the ball. They got enough weapons over there and enough on offense. I think it's going to be a down to the wire game. This line is 3. I might buy it down to 2.5 because this game always seems to end up, and Andy Reid loves close games for some reason. I think it's 27 to 20, 27 to 24. I don't want that push, but I do think the Chiefs take care of business at home. I may just play the money line. Any thoughts on this one? Ravens at Chiefs tomorrow night.
Well, yeah, you're not going to like my thoughts on this one, right? Because, I mean, I think this is one of these years where you see the Chiefs kind of coast in and out, right? And let's be really clear, as good as the Dallas-Cleveland game is, this is by far the game of the week.
Yeah.
Possibly sort of game of the season type thing, right? You got two powerhouses going at it Thursday night, kicking off the NFL season. I think Lamar Jackson, I think the gang there is really ready to put the hammer down and get themselves to that AFC championship and get themselves there with home field advantage. So whereas I can see the Chiefs kind of coasting into this game, I can see Baltimore coming in with this thing been circled for, ever since the schedule came out, right? So I'm going Ravens. I like your buy it down, to 2.5 points, because I do think it could be a field goal to a touchdown, something that happens in the last under 3 minutes. And then maybe the Chiefs get the ball back, but they just aren't able to convert a touchdown. And so ultimately Baltimore wins by 6 or 7 or whatnot, right? So my money's on the Ravens. Sorry, buddy.
No, I love it. I actually had money on the Lions last year in the opening game. I want to say it was 7. And Chiefs, obviously lost the game outright. So I can't blame you one bit. And the Chiefs were not even one of the top 2 seeds in the playoffs last year. So I don't want to perseverate on the Chiefs, but I think what you explained is what they did last year. So they coasted through the regular season. Losing that Detroit game was one of them. They lost a few others I don't think they should have lost, and it cost them the home field. Of course, in the end, it didn't matter because you have Lamar and Josh Allen in the playoffs, who suck. The only one in that conference so recently that's proven himself against Mahomes in the playoffs is Burrow, and he was out. So anyway, just my 2 cents on that one. I want to just touch on a couple more games. I think it's actually a pretty good slate of first games. You have familiarity with this conference, and so we have a Friday night game. I want to say NFL's never done a Friday night game this early in the year, unless it's a holiday. But Friday night, and I believe this is in Brazil. Packers at Eagles. Packers had an amazing year. Love made himself a lot of money last year. Eagles, not so much. I believe they kind of tanked down the end, and everybody's wondering what was happening with the Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 2.5, but this is a neutral game. You got to keep that in mind. It's Brazil. I think Packer fans and Eagles fans will both travel. They'll both be there. I am of the belief a little bit that the Packers, though, regress some from that great year last year and the Jordan Love fame that he had towards the end of the year. I like the Eagles to cover 2.5. Any thoughts on this one?
I don't. I'm a big Jordan Love fan. I thought what he did was pretty spectacular. I would give Dak Prescott and half of the offensive line to get Jordan Love in Dallas in a Dallas uniform. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely see him possibly struggling against the Eagles. So I don't have a strong feeling. I'd probably stay away from this game personally, but heck, I'm going to watch this one because it's going to be exciting to see what goes on in Sao Paulo.
Yeah, is this like I wonder if it's in a soccer stadium. I don't think they have football stadiums. I'm guessing it's in a soccer stadium. I don't know. I wonder how many people it holds.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I like it. Be interesting to see what both of those teams do this year, because I think, again, the NFC is wide open. We haven't talked about our picks. We'll do that at the very end. I want to get our picks on Super Bowl. But one other game I wanted to touch on that we haven't really talked about yet. Monday night is, the return of the prodigal son and his ayahuasca in New York. The Aaron Rodgers led Jets, who have also built up a good, talented roster through the draft and through some trades, go to San Francisco. San Francisco loves to just get to the Super Bowl and lose to the Chiefs, which is great for me. Um, San Francisco's a 4.5 point favorite at home in this game. They got obviously some amazing talent on that team as well. Do you have any thoughts on Aaron Rodgers, or if he's going to make a difference on this Jets team that was very close to making the playoffs last year without him?
Well, look, he has to make a difference. He is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the things that he's able to do, how he can read the defense, how he can look to put the ball in the right place. I think the question is he going to finish the whole game, right? I got a good buddy who's a Jets fan, and he talks about the fact that, Aaron Rodgers played 3 plays last year. So I think the big question is whether he's going to finish this game, because the 49ers are going to be they're going to be bringing it, right? They're going to bring the house a whole bunch of times to see if Aaron is really back in game shape.
Yeah.
I suspect the 49ers will cover. You've heard my rants on Brock Purdy. We'll save that for a future podcast. Not a huge Brock fan, but he's really kind of proven me wrong time and time and time again. So I suspect he would prove me wrong if I was taking the Jets. So I'm going to go ahead and lean on the 49ers, and maybe the real Brock Purdy will show up.
The one that you've always dreamed of and talked about that was going to throw 6 interceptions. And yeah. Well, you know what?
Exactly.
It's one of those situations. This is the other situations that you can make a Super Bowl. If you are a team loaded with talent across the board and you got a quarterback that doesn't screw it up. And so far, for him, knock on wood, he hasn't screwed it up. He hasn't necessarily had a bunch of 350-yard games. But he goes out there, he knows he can hand the ball off or jump it off to Kittle, and rely on his defense. Their special teams are kind of underrated too. So, I'm kind of leaning Jets because of the number. This is a game I might bet because I think it might be a little low scoring. Jets will still have a good defensive roster. I don't feel like this game's going to be up and down the field. So, Brees Hall is an underrated running back. Jets can maybe chew up some clocks. I'm just gonna do it just because the number is 4.5. That could be a 21-17 loss and still win. So that's what I'm going with. I'm taking the Jets. It's kind of making me a little nauseous right now because I'm not a fan of the Jets, nor am I a fan of Aaron Rodgers and ayahuasca. So anyway, let's move on real quick. I haven't really thought about this, but we got to get it on record. Our Super Bowl. Let's just go with like our final 4 picks. In the AFC, 2 in the AFC, 2 in the NFC. If I'm not mistaken, it was San Francisco, Green Bay in the NFC last year, or Green Bay had all those upsets in the playoff run. And then, of course, I mentioned the Chiefs at Baltimore and then the Chiefs and the 49ers. So out of every year, somebody surprises and comes out of nowhere. That last year in the Final Four, obviously Detroit was one, but in the Final Four was Green Bay. Nobody expected Green Bay to be in the conference championship at the NFC. So I'd love it if we could kind of really quick, spend a few minutes and think about who's that team that might go from the missing the playoffs to making a run in the playoffs, and who's that team that's going to regress that made the playoffs last year, maybe made a run, and this year they're gonna tank it. So I didn't prep you for this, so I understand that you may not have enough time to kind of look at that. But one of the teams, I'm wondering about is getting all the hype is Houston. And yeah, CJ Stroud had an amazing year last year. I think they had a lot of close games go their way, and that sometimes seems to even itself out over time. And another team that I would throw in there is Detroit. I think they had a lot of close games go their way. Those are 2 teams that didn't make deep runs, but they did make the playoffs. And I think they could be a 7-10 team this year. One of those 2 teams I think will drop pretty big. Do you have a team that you think is gonna drop like that had a really really good year last year? Don't say
Well, I
Dallas.
think it's a good call. Yeah, I think it's a good call in Detroit. Yeah, I'm going to pick the Packers. As
Yeah,
much as I was throwing Jordan Love, some appreciation there, and I stand on that record. I would trade Dak in a heartbeat for someone like Jordan Love. I think the Packers are probably that team that's going to struggle, right? They're not going to sneak up on anyone anymore.
Right.
Jordan to repeat the kind of end of the season that he had, I suspect they're probably that team that teams will get up for, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough when you play 17 games in a season. How do you get up for certain programs? And I think the Packers will be one of those that a lot of teams get up for and want to come after. So I suspect they'll probably regress, finish kind of in that 8-9, 9-8 type range, and likely miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, again, they're in a tough division. I know the Vikings lost Cousins, so they might not be as good. But you get Bears are going to be a lot better. They were just a couple of plays away from making the playoffs. Lions are in there with them too. So I'm kind of with you on that one. I was thinking about them earlier when I said the Detroit Lions, but I could definitely see that with the Packers. One of the teams that I think could possibly make a pretty good run this coming year is in the AFC. And, everybody likes to always say that about the Chargers because they have Justin Herbert. They have Will Harbaugh make a difference there? I don't think so in year one, so I'm not going to take them as my pick. The obvious pick is the Bengals missing the playoffs, but they didn't have Burrow, so I'm not going to go that direction. I'm actually going to go as, like I said, if the Texans regress, I think, like I'm thinking they might, I think the Jaguars are going to be a potential AFC championship team. I think Trevor Lawrence is at a point in his career. Hey, how come we keep talking about Dabo quarterbacks? One I'm saying sucks. I think Trevor Lawrence has it. And I think that defense is really good. I know it is. It's very good. They got one of my guys from Kentucky, Josh Allen, who's just an amazing pass rusher. So, they get a weaker division in the AFC South. I don't think they're scheduled that hard. I'm going Jacksonville. I'm predicting them to make the AFC Championship this year, not the Super Bowl, the AFC Championship. What do you think about anybody in the AFC? Or anybody in the NFC you think will jump
I'm taking
up?
anybody in the NFC or the AFC.
Either one.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Dolphins, right? I mean, I really like offense. Let's be clear, and I think that coach and some of the things that's going on down there, I think they've got some of that, moxie and air about them. I think they've probably recognized the mistakes that they made last year that contributed to a number of losses. I think they'll look to fix some of those mistakes and be much stronger this year. It's a tough division, right? Anytime you're in Miami and having to travel to Buffalo and New England and the Jets, particularly as it gets to wintertime. But I think they'll have a plan for that. And I actually wouldn't be surprised to see the Dolphins in the AFC Championship playing against the Ravens. So that would be my quick AFC Championship prediction. Ravens, Dolphins, really going at it there for a chance to get to the Super Bowl.
I can see it happening. I can see that happening for sure. The Dolphins, had a chance at the 1 seed with 2 weeks left to go and lost their last 2 games. So they could have been sitting with home field advantage against the Chiefs there in the AFC Championship just as easily if they didn't blow it there in the last 2 games. So last thing I kind of wanted to touch on is just it made me think of something is how lucky we kind of are, in this time of NFL to be seeing, if you think about the amazing quarterback wide receiver combos, when I was just going down these teams in my head that we're looking at, I mean, Tyreek and Tua, Hawk Tua, throwing to Tyreek, that's one. Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, they're both in the same division. Maybe Aaron Rodgers will find a connection in New York. They have a great receiver. I can't think of who that is right now, but with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him. Obviously, you got Kelsey and Mahomes and what used to be Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. I mean, I could probably go on and on. You got is it CeeDee Lamb and Prescott in Dallas. I mean, they may be the best combo of any of them. It's just amazing. And Burrow, I didn't even mention Burrow and Jamar Chase could be the best. So what I was getting at, I probably haven't even named them all. But who to you out of that group do you think, are we going to look back as the best in this era? Because right now everybody's looking up at Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, but those wide receivers, it's hard to separate them.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
all
tough
about
one.
winning. That's how I
Yeah.
boil it down. So the Kelsey Mahomes, that is a winning combination, and that's what people are drawn to. I mean, let's be honest, right? We're all drawn to the winners. The guys that finish 5 and 9. Jamar Chase and Burrow. They didn't have a great year last year. No one's really talking about that tandem anymore. I mean, we can admit the talent is there, but they're not talking about them because they're not winning. So look, it's about winning. Kelsey Mahomes, they're at the top of the heap. Everybody else is trying to claw for a little bit of what they got.
Yeah. Yeah, I would lean that way as well. May not be as flashy. Mahomes is flashy. Kelsey's maybe not as flashy. We know as a wide receiver running a 4-4 down the sideline. I just thought it was interesting to think about. I just rounded off 6 or 7 just amazing combinations of players. And one of these days, we'll have a conversation about Mr. Tyreek Hill and what I know that went on in the locker room when he was in Kansas City and why he's in Miami. Tease for a future podcast. There's a lot to it that has not gone public. So one of the people that actually, I didn't realize this, but one of the people that was on that coaching staff that year that everybody thought should get a head coaching job, Eric Bieniemy, went to the Commanders and stunk. He's now the OC at UCLA. That's falling far in 2 years. OC at Kansas City in the Super Bowl to OC at UCLA under Mr. Foster. Anyway, that may have a little bit to do with a little tidbit that I'll have about Tyreek Hill. It's been fun, Fonty. Any other final thoughts before we hop off here and get ready for an awesome weekend of football?
Yeah, look, NCAA, we got a lot of good games on the schedule. We got the NFL kicking off tomorrow night, Thursday. Super excited for that. Probably going to get in around the golf this weekend. But other than that, man, just living the dream.
Awesome. Well, I'm also going to tease a podcast we're going to have coming up, hopefully this weekend, because I'm going to be in Kansas City with some of my Kansas City friends. Try to get them a little lubricated, get them on this podcast on these on the YouTube channel and see what kind of fun we can have, so we can break up the going through the games a little bit. So look out for that. If you're listening to this, we might have a little fun with that one. So more to come on the Bad Iron podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Fonty, for joining me. It's been great so far. I'm glad you haven't given up on me yet. And you know what? I have a Tea Time Sunday. So we know what to talk about. Peace out. Later.
Peace.